Good morning, I'm Sam Sorbo, here for the Accidental Homeschooler, which is you guys, probably. Nobody thought they were going to have to be homeschooling, right? Kids are home from school. We've got another couple weeks of this, maybe more. In fact, I've heard now that most schools, or many schools, will not be starting up classes again until the fall. And so today I want to talk about the damage to education. Coronavirus has turned the world upside down. Nothing is as we knew it to be. I think we will change from this, but I'm hoping we'll be able to recollect and go back to a lot of how things used to be. But now we've got some experts saying that an entire generation's education is at risk. And so I want to delve into that. Is that actually true? And then I have a couple of comments that I want to share with you from people who have been watching these videos. And again, thank you for your comments. If you go to samsorbo.com, you can email me there. You're welcome to do that. I would love to hear questions or comments that I can answer live in YouTube would be great. Okay. An entire generation, and this comes from an article in the Washington Post. And the article says, perspective, homeschooling during the coronavirus will set back a generation of children. So basically, the perspective is homeschooling bad, despite the fact that we have all of our political leaders calling on us to home educate our children. It's really amazing. But this is the statist response because they can't afford to have the children not come back to school. Because if your child doesn't show up at school, the school doesn't get the money. That's just the way it is. Sorry, it's still early for me. I hope you guys all had a great weekend. And so there's an answer to this article, and I'm going to write an answer to it also by, I'm thinking this looks like it might be Jennifer Van Laar. Yeah, Jennifer Van Laar. She tweeted back, my oldest son, who was homeschooled and graduated high school at 15, received his bachelor's in economics at 18 and is already in management at a major financial company at 25. He'd disagree with that. All right. She said that tweet's produced more engagement than almost any other tweet she's sent in the years she's been on Twitter. Hundreds of people assumed I was claiming that my child's experience was representative of all homeschoolers. Well, that's interesting. All she said was her child would disagree with the statement that homeschooling will set back a generation of children, which is the Washington Post's enormous overgeneralization. Basically, homeschooling will set back the education of a generation is a condemnation of home education. It's an outright condemnation. Whereas the funny thing is the stats are in, and the stats are very clear. Let's see, I have some of them here. Home educated students typically score 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized achievement tests. A 2015 study found that Black homeschool students scored 23 to 42 percentile points above Black public school students. Homeschool students score above average on achievement tests regardless of their parents' level of formal education. Now, that was interesting to me when I read that, a couple years back, that it doesn't actually matter the level of education that the parent has had. It really comes down to, I think more than anything, and this could be an overgeneralization, but it's really about parental involvement. And that's why the schools often send home parent homework. So parent, you need to do this with your child. You need to read with your child, and you need to check off in the child's reading log. Did mommy read with little Susie for 15 minutes, last night? And if you don't check it off, then the teacher's going to come down hard on you, which is, if you remember, my whole talk on Friday was about authority and the fact that the school challenges your authority. It can't help but. I'm not saying that the teachers want to go up against you. They can't help it. It's in the nature of things. Home educated do very well socially because and actually there's a report on measures of social, emotional, and psychological development. Research measures included peer interaction, self-concept, leadership skills, family cohesion, participation in community service, and self-esteem. And I think part of the reason for that is because a lot of home educated students have other responsibilities within the family unit. What happens is when we send our children off to school and then they do sports, then everything, their whole world revolves around them. And it's hard to demand of them other stuff like clean the kitchen or vacuum the basement or help your sister with this or do that for the family. And in fact, I can't remember where I read this, but there was a whole study done that proposed that the reason that teen suicide is climbing and is so high right now is that these teenagers are sort of being set adrift in a sea of social media without any real tethers to their families. And so what homeschooling does is, boy, you're in the family because it's a family project. Or it should be anyway. Now, I think that to take the Washington Post article seriously, it raises some reasonable issues. That distance learning is difficult. Because when you put a child in front of their computer and here you go and here's the computer, learn. Who's to say that that's going to work? It's challenging, and it's challenging for the child, for the student, to just sit in front of the computer and learn. So yes, distance learning, that kind of online learning has its challenges. So absolutely. There's also this, I would say that the Washington Post article takes a fairly sinister view about parents, let's say, ability to step up. The parent and I don't know that they're so. I think that they're misguided and sinister, but I don't know how right they are or how wrong they are, because I know that there are a lot of parents out there hurting because they're just throwing up their hands in the air and saying, no, not going to happen. I can't do this. I'm not going to try. And why? Why? Because I don't want to fail. Because if I try, I will fail, and then I don't want to fail, and so I'm not going to try. That's a little bit misguided. So if you're one of those people who feels like, there's just no way, I'm not cut out for this, maybe challenge yourself. Give yourself a moment. Challenge yourself to just sit down with your child. Pick something and say, let's do this together. Let's see how we go. This is all new for mommy too. I've never done this before, but we're going to give this a shot because I love you and this is important. And I know it's important because why? Because the institution tells me it's important. So it's got to be important. That's the other thing is, if this article is true, if this coronavirus situation is about to set back education for an entire generation. I mean, it's such hyperbole. It's like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. I mean, seriously, that's what. Anyway, if it's true, then why do they need 12 years to educate our children? If 4 months is enough to just completely derail everything, why even bother going to school at all? I mean, seriously, they beat themselves with their own stick. Oh, boo, boo, boo. It's ridiculous. Okay. In the first paragraph of the article, the writer at the Washington Post, Huffman, wrote this. As the coronavirus pandemic closes schools, American children this month met their new English, math, science, and homeroom teachers, their iPads, and their parents. Yeah, they're iPads, right? You don't need an iPad to learn. Distance learning or online learning, yes, you do. But I am not advocating for you to just switch over to the K through 12 online schooling. Please don't do that. I know it's a scary world out there, but there are curriculum that are so much better than what they're offering our students in school. You have to understand, the school curriculum is engineered to bring the slowest along, because they're always looking for equality. In fact, here's the question: why do they even test? If testing is a form of measurement to determine where you stand on a curve, how dare they? Everybody should just be equal. Let's just call them equal and be done with it. Okay, years of research shows that online schooling is ineffective. Is that true? I don't think so. It's really amazing that that somebody can write an article like this at the Washington Post and get it read and have it published. And anyway, please don't believe the hype. Okay, it's not as bad as you think, and it's probably not as good as I think, because I'm the eternal optimist. But the idea that if you took the next 4 months off with your child, and by the way, what do you do during the summer? Does that mean that we should eliminate summers and children should just do year-round school? Because here's the thing. If you learn it, then you know it. If you only know it for the test, then you never learned it. Learning it means that you know it well enough to teach it. Okay? So if you went to high school and you don't know enough to teach a third grader, then you never learned it. You just passed the test and moved on. And if the system was happy, and you were happy with simply passing the test and moving on, then you really ought to rethink sending your child into that system. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't mean to be, well, I suppose I do mean to be kind of negative. So I want to give you guys a couple of tools today. Recommend a couple of tools today. I highly recommend this movie. It's called Indoctrination. It's got a school bus. It's like a school bus. There's a picture of a school bus on the back. It's a little bit older. When did it come out? It doesn't matter. It came out a couple years ago. It's a documentary. It's a very well produced documentary. It is. It's very watchable. You can actually watch it with your kids. If you're not ready to take a hard look at the true state of public education, you will want to avoid this unflinching and highly controversial documentary. But that would be a mistake. So you've got lots of time. This is available for screening online. You can stream it. They don't sponsor me. I have no affiliation except that they reached out to me several years ago because they wanted to come on the radio and basically begged me to watch the movie, and I didn't watch it, and they wore me down, and I finally went, okay, I'll watch the movie. And I was absolutely riveted. It changed my life. It changed the way, and I was already homeschooling, it changed the way I understood the schools. So now is the time, now that you're slightly disillusioned with your school, who cut your children loose and said, you do it, and we're not helping. You go do it, and we'll be back in the fall. Can you imagine? I'm paying my tax dollars. Why don't I get some curriculum home with my child, please? I shouldn't even have to say please. It should be automatic. So I'm just saying, take a moment, go online, Indoctrination, look for the school bus, Indoctrination. And I think it's indoctrinationmovie.com. If I remember, I should know that, but if you find it online, and they've got John Taylor Gatto in here. He is phenomenal. He's amazing. And R.C. Sproul, this is a movie that will change the way that you perceive education, and maybe it'll break those blinders that we all have on, right? We have on these blinders that education good, school good, but it's not necessarily. And I'm not talking about the teachers. We love our teachers. They're wonderful. Not terribly interested in education, apparently. Because you know what? If you have a teacher, if your child has a teacher who has sent homework for them from a public school, email me. Let me know, because that's a teacher I will hold up and say, this is a teacher. This is somebody who is engaged and interested in seeing to the education of young people. But I've yet to see that. But I have seen teachers, excuse me, we had a parade go by last week, Friday, I think it was. And apparently it was a group of teachers in cars, and they just drove through the neighborhoods honking and sort of waving at their former students or at their quarantine students. You get what I mean, right? Hey! Were they passing out books? No. Were they shouting out assignments? No. Were they just encouraging reading? Hey, don't forget to keep up on your reading. Not that I heard. So, what is school? What is school? What is it? Is it for the socialization? Is it for the behavior modification? Is it for the babysitting? Is it just a distraction? What is school? I think that's actually what I'm going to write. Okay. Let me go back to, so the damage to education, I think there will be damage to education, because I'm hoping that you'll help share this video and share my YouTube feed with people so that they wake up a little bit as to what's been happening in our schools for a very long time. Do you understand that children graduating high school are no longer at the level of high school graduates from 70 years ago? You think that we've progressed? Our education has regressed, such that professors in colleges teaching, every college student has to take an English writing course, English 101 or whatever, the first semester, first year English course, and you write some essays, right? Those professors are reporting that they have to teach students to write at a high school level just to try to bring them up to speed. There's a thing that circulated a while ago of an 8th grade graduation exam. Most people today who graduate high school can't possibly even entertain the idea of passing that exam. Our education is not what it used to be. It's not what you think it is. And missing it is not nearly as bad as you might imagine. I'm just saying. So use the time, get closer as a family, cook together, do some other fun things together, do some reading together. Look up online. By the way, you can go, I've just joined forces with coronavirushomeschooling.com. And so it's out of Texas, and they're offering online available sort of classes and instruction for what to do. So far, they've got K through 5. They're working on the upper grades. But for the upper grades, my goodness, just go to Amazon Amazon's making a killing off coronavirus, I'll tell you. Go online and get your student just a couple of classic literature books, Jane Eyre, Little Women, Passage to India, Gulliver's Travels, right? Just get them some of the classic literature, the classics. And then take a few minutes, go online, read some of the cliff notes for some of the discussion questions and have those discussions with your kids. You do not have to have read the book. You do not. You just have that discussion. And the discussion is a series of questions and answers. So you're asking the questions and they're giving you the answers. What is satire? How is what happens in this book satire? Questions like that. And those actually, and the questions are available online. So there's a way to get this done at basically, in a sense, at a higher level than what your children would get from attending school, because the school is so filled with all these other distractions: behavior modification, socialization, food, all of these other distractions. And for the math, if you have an upper grade level student, the textbook has all the answers. The student doesn't understand. Honestly, 2 pages back in the textbook, it shows how to do the problem. Just take a few minutes. I remember when my oldest was studying logic. Mom, this makes no sense. I can't make sense of it. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to do it. And he would bring me the problem and I'd look at it. I didn't know how to do it. I never took logic. I understood math. Math is logic, but logic is a different language than math. And I'm like, oh, okay. Give me a minute. And I literally turned back 2 pages and the answer's right there. And then I started to get a little bit consternated because I was like, okay, did you read this? No. Well, you can't just expect to go to the problems and do the problems correctly if you haven't read the instructions on how to solve the problems. It just doesn't work. It's like trying to bake a cake, but never having learned what a measuring cup is. And saying, it says 1 cup. I don't even know what that means. How am I supposed to do this? I don't know what that means. You look it up. What does 1 cup mean? So you don't know how to do the math problem, you look it up. What are they asking you to do? And literally just 2 pages. In fact, we use Saxon, and I know that other textbooks do this too, with every problem in Saxon, because so much of what they do is repetitive of what's come before, because they really want the student to just get by rote, just be able to do it, just to understand. And math is a foreign language. Math is just like a foreign language. They have a different word for everything. They have different syntax. They have different grammar. They have ways of expressing sentences. And so in Saxon and in other textbooks, they have in little tiny parentheses, they have a little tiny number that refers to the chapter where that problem is solved for you, that type of problem. So you're constantly being given the reference point. It's that easy. And what you'll find is when you start working that way, you're much more efficient. Oh, you're much more efficient. And so you'll finish your school day and there won't be any homework. So yeah, if you're upper grade, if you're upper classman, right, you're going to have 6 hours of work a day. But then once that 6 hours is done, there's no homework. For school students, they go to school for 7.5 hours a day, and then they go to basketball practice or whatever, and then they go home and then they have homework. It's crazy making. Okay. Well, that's it. That's the damage to education. Now I want to share a story somebody wrote me, which I just loved. So I told her I would share this on air. I wanted to share my story when my eyes were opened to my loss of authority. So this was a comment on the video that I did on Friday. And if you haven't seen it, you can go back and check that out. Now, it took me a long while. This happened when our 3rd child was in 2nd grade. She had a folder that had to be signed every night. We'd never had that before. About 6 weeks into the school year, she brought me her folder while I was cooking dinner. She didn't have any homework or any notes, but it still had to be signed. I told her, put it up and I would sign it later because I was dealing with raw meat at the time. Of course, I forgot. So the next day, the little girl who was in 2nd grade, had to sit out at recess. Had to sit out. She was punished because mommy didn't sign the folder. even though there was no homework to be done. I told the teacher I felt that was a little much because it was my fault. She said that it was my daughter's fault for not making sure that I signed it. I tried explaining that if she had tried to get me to sign it, and I told her I would, so she had trusted I would take care of it, that should be the end of it. Then she told me that my daughter should have known better than to try to get me to sign it when I was busy. She was 6 years old. I felt the punishment for a first offense was a little much. It could really pit the kids against their parents. You think? I didn't like the teacher having that kind of control of my child. It was just the last step to God opening my eyes to homeschool. She says, I enjoyed your message. I hope more people will learn the joys of having their children at home, learning with them. Thanks for being so bold. So thank you for that. Imagine your child gets punished and severely punished. No playground. You sit down and you watch all the other kids play. My heart breaks for this little girl. You watch all the other kids play because your mommy did a bad thing. Can you imagine how that child feels about their parent? But I asked mommy to sign it. I asked her to sign it. Why didn't mommy sign it? Why does my mommy not like me? Do you see how they can't help it? The school forms a wedge between you and your child. So, is there damage to education? I can only hope so, if we're talking about the institutions that come between families. I can only hope so. But is there damage to your child's education? I think not. I think your child will flourish in ways that you never thought possible now that you're in this situation, if you embrace it. And I encourage you to embrace it. So I told you about indoctrination. This will open your eyes. It's an incredible, incredible movie. I'm going to show it one more time. In fact, I don't think I have the link up on my website, but I'll do that. My books, they're Your Kids, An Inspirational Journey from Self-Doubter, that's me, to Homeschool Advocate. Thank you. If I could remember the name of my book that I wrote. And then Teach from Love, which is teaching virtue to our children, teaching them the qualities of virtue and how to be virtuous, which I think is so important. Please subscribe to my YouTube videos. Please share them with your friends and with your groups. And, everybody's moving online. So please help me get the word out. You parents out there, I get it. You need support. You need encouragement. You need to feel empowered. And I'm here to help you feel empowered because you've got this. You can do this. And then you can also go to coronavirushomeschooling.com if you want, more specific information of curriculum that they're just putting out for parents to it saddens me when they say we want to just keep our children busy. I don't believe in keeping children busy in that sense. I believe you give them things to do, absolutely. But if you don't give them things to do, set their creativity ablaze. Give them creative things to do. But they've got some great resources over there, so you can go there as well. And there are tons of resources all over the web. So subscribe and tell your friends, and check out the video that I did on Facebook over the weekend, also at the official Sam Sorbo Facebook page. And you can email me at samsorbo.com. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you guys, and be safe. What do we say? Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Social distancing. Okay, all the best. We'll see you back here tomorrow.